Keto and crime, keto and crime. We uncover the grime on keto and crime. Keto and crime, keto and crime. Now is the time for keto and crime.
Hey everyone, Tracy here from Keto and Crime. Thank you so much to every single one of my patrons and channel members. You make this possible. And you're one of the reasons I do this. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if I haven't said it before, thank you. I'll sing it. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there with me and letting me geek out, not making fun of me like a lot of other people do, because I like weird stuff about crime and dark history. Thanks everyone. Everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime. Today I have a great surprise for everybody. I have Julienne Davis. She is a artist by all accounts, a ballet dancer, visual artist, and a very successful Hollywood actress. She is here to talk about just her journey in acting and art, which I think everybody on my channel is interested in, and to talk about a brand new psychological thriller, horror adjacent film that she has done that is available right here on YouTube as well as other streaming platforms called
Fear Frequency.
Fear Frequency. It just went right out of my head. I'm also going to review that film as part 2 of this very special video. So Julienne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Well, I started off when I was very young as a ballet dancer, and then got too tall for that, then moved into being a model, and then ended up auditioning for a extra role, believe it or not, in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, and instead booked the role of Mandy Curran. And that started my acting career. And then from there, I moved on to voiceover. And then during that time that I was acting, or just before that, actually, I started getting into music. So I'm a singer, songwriter, and producer. And then, so all of that has continued. I've put out a few albums and a bunch of singles and, you know, various bands and permutations. And then last few years, I've been getting into art, fine art. I paint. And I sell my paintings to, you know, some big collectors in New York, and, you know, to anybody who wants to buy it. And sometimes I just hang them up in my own house. But I'm just, you know, thank you for introducing me as an artist, because like a lot of artistic people, we tend to be artistic in a multitude of fields. And that's me. I'm not necessarily blowing my own horn saying, oh, aren't I wonderful? I can do all of these things. It's just, I think the truth is you get bored, you know, just doing the same thing, only that one thing. I'm like, oh, that looks fun. I'm going to try that for a while. And, oh, but what about that? I'm going to do that. So, you know, I've just ended up doing a multitude of things because it's fun and this is life, and why not explore it, you know?
Well, the movie that we're going to be talking about, Fear Frequency, it's a very particular type of horror and thriller. It's conspiracy based,
yes,
and a little bit political. What drew you to that script, or how did the script fall into your hands?
Okay, so what's really interesting about this script is that you can't put a political side on it. It's kind of genius. The way the well, okay, let me back up a little bit. I had an initial idea about a storyline. I had been talking to a good friend of mine online, who I've never met, by the way, which is very interesting. We've only just gotten to know each other, you know, God bless the internet.
Exactly.
Through the internet, right? And he had suggested to me, he said, because I was very frustrated being conservative and feeling a bit, you know, blackballed. And he was saying, well, do something yourself. And I'm like, yeah, right. You know, how am I going to do that? And he said, you know, you draw from life and do things that, you know, write something around, kind of around you, something that you could capably do. And so originally I had thought of this idea of me just doing it on my own, almost like treating my computer camera like, almost like a diary, like the computer was going to be my best friend, my confidant, my auditioner, my executioner, you know, all of those things, right? So I went to my friend Laura Russo, who is the director and also one of the writers and producers. And I told her this idea. And she said, that's a really cool idea. And she said, do you mind if I tell my friend Tim about it? And Tim is, again, writer, producer. And hang on, my phone kept ringing. You can't hear it, but I can. It's annoying. So she told him, and then the lockdown happened in 2020. And I got a call from Laura, and she said, you know what? This is crazy. We're all sitting around not doing anything because of the lockdown. So what do you say we get this done? We do this. And I said, okay. So we decided that, you know, the three of us would come up with the storyline and the two of them were going to go and write the script. And I said, that's fine. You guys write it, you know, because I knew in myself that I was going to need some help, because I would talk myself out of it, which isn't good. I don't recommend talking yourself out of doing things. I think you should just do it. Be fearless. Right. So it all, you know, we put the script together and, you know, signed our own contracts and blah, blah, blah. And then by July, even though we were still pretty much locked down, we just filmed the whole thing. And so it is a little bit conspiracy theory, but what's really interesting about it politically is that Laura and Tim are definitely left of center. And I'm the conservative here of the three of us. And we all agreed that the film should be entertainment and not be some sort of covert, you know, propaganda that was going to hype one side or the other. And I think, you know, bravo to them, because I think that they achieved that. I really do. And that's great, because like a Kubrick film, each person can watch that film and interpret it with their own worldview. So you do have conservatives going, wow, you know, great conservative film. But when you look at it, you think, is it necessarily conservative, or is it just making a statement? You know? And so I'm quite proud of that. I'm quite proud of the fact that, you know, we haven't picked a side, even though I am very much a conservative.
I think it's awesome that we are now seeing more of that coming out of Hollywood. It's just entertainment. Yes. I think the Top Gun sequel probably was one of the first ones that here recently that have come screaming back by saying, we're just going to entertain. We have no message here. We're just going to entertain. And that's what people want. Yes.
And, you know, with our film, I mean, there's a suggestion of a message, but the message is how you interpret it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I think that's kind of beautiful. And the other thing that's really kind of intriguing about Fear Frequency is that it does skirt around a lot of the things that are going on today. You know, my character plays a woman who is a blogger and a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And it plays around with the idea of isolation and what's going on in the outside world and how I'm interacting with that in my head, or rather my character is interacting with that in my head. And so some of it is, you think, is this really happening? Or is this just this woman going a little bit Looney Tunes, you know? So it's a really interesting film. And I'm, you know, when we made it, I mean, this is my first film that I've fully carried as a lead actor. And if I had had too much time with myself to think about the fact that I was carrying a film, I think I just would have flipped out. But I just, you know, approaching it day by day and scene by scene, it was just, okay, let's just do this. Let's get on with it. Let's make it the best it can be. And then let's just move on. And I didn't think about the fact that I was carrying it. So when I say that when I watched it myself, I didn't even feel like I was watching me. I found the film really compelling to watch, truly. And I was like, wow, I just, it's like, it is truly a compelling film to watch. And so in that respect, I'm so happy with it because I didn't focus on the fact that it was me in this film,
Well, I have rented it. I'm going to be watching it after we
Yay.
air, but just I've watched both the spoiler trailer and the full trailer, and it is just something that sucks you right in. It,
the whole film's like that. The whole film.
It's spooky because we just went through an unprecedented crisis where we were all locked down and having to disseminate information for ourselves. But in this film, it's kind of something has destroyed global communications and no one knows why. And so then you kind of have your own theories. And then from there, is it almost like it looks like almost is it a descent into madness or is it you uncovering something? Because the way it looks, it could be either.
Exactly. It could be either. It's a matter of your interpretation. Yeah. So that's why, again, I say bravo to Tim and Laura who wrote that script because they really got that right. Yeah.
Well, I know it's won some awards. Can you tell us about
We've
that?
won, best film, best thriller. We've won 2 best actress and a few more. I can't remember all of them. I'd have to go onto my IMDb to look, but yeah. And then we've had a few honorable mentions and things like that. So yeah, it's been great. I mean, and here's the thing, if I never did anything else ever for the rest of my life in the acting world, at least I got 2 best actress awards. I mean, that's just amazing from my peers, people in festivals that voted for me. I'm like, yay, thank you.
Absolutely.
My hard work paid off. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see it. And
good.
Well, tell me about the filming of it. I know you said you did it during lockdown. Were you able to get out and go to a centralized set, or was a lot of it filmed virtually, or were they just coming over to your house, or you going over to their house?
We filmed in one house location, and we used 3 different cameras. So, for the main dates of filming, we had maybe maximum 9 or 10 people at the location. And so we use 3 kinds of cameras. We use one camera for that sort of fourth wall, third person perspective, right? If there's a dialogue between 2 people.
Right.
And then we used the computer camera, which would look like this does, horizontal camera, for any of my blogs that I was kind of shooting out into the world, hoping that someone was actually able to see what I was saying. And then the last one was we used foam, so that camera line was, the horizontal camera line. So you could tell the difference between the 3. And the reason we did that is you almost have to think of especially the computer and the phone as almost different characters in a sense, because the phone, like my original storyline idea, the phone was the thing that acted as my confessional, my best friend, my confidant, all of those things. Somebody that I could talk to, even though it was just me that I was staring at. Right. But it was had that personal aspect. And then the computer camera was me as not as Jackie, which is the main character, but as Jax, my online persona, or rather Jackie's online persona to the world, to her bloggers. Right. And then the third person perspective was what was going on behind all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, how did you prepare for the role since you're playing kind of a blogger with a conspiracy edge? Did you watch a lot of YouTube videos on that, or did you watch Alex Jones? How did you prepare for that? Or how did you get into that mindset?
The thing is with acting and with any preparation is I think on a really, really basic level, it's just about doing, and pardon my French here, but it's just about doing the mind fuck.
Yeah.
So you do believe that you really are that person feeling those feelings with that history, and you just immerse yourself. I don't know how else to describe it. So I immersed myself, and it wasn't hard to do, I suppose, because we were all feeling isolated, first of all. And, you know, when it comes to, you know, there's one scene where, without giving anything away, where I'm being bullied. I'm going to keep it really vague. I'm being kind of bullied, and it's kind of an intense scene, and I've been bullied. Mm-hmm. So for me, I just needed to draw on that aspect of my life. So it's, I think for, if, you know, in the case of, if you have scenes where it's something where it's not necessarily your life experience, then obviously you need to find inspiration from elsewhere, and, you know, and kind of internalize that inspiration. But I think in the case of this character, I could draw on a lot of different instances of my life. And that's how I managed to make it so personal, because it became me. It's all parts of me. I mean, they say with acting, or at least the good ones say with acting, that in order to be a great actor, and I'm not insinuating that I'm great, I'm just saying in order to be, I guess I should say, a believable actor,
right,
is that you need to be able to take all of yourself, everything you are, all your light and dark, all your good and bad, all your weirdness, everything, and put that into your character. So that if you were, for instance, going to play a doctor, you don't just play your version of what you think a doctor is, you know, someone that's very, right? You put all of yourself into that doctor, and then that doctor becomes completely real. It's got a full personality. It's got all the light and shade, and, you know, all of those things. So that's how I did it with my character.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about working with the great Stanley Kubrick. What was he like? What was that like?
First of all, I'm just beyond grateful, because him choosing me, and I don't think it was the choice of Warner Brothers. I think it was him that chose me and fought for me. Mm-hmm. My life changed after that. It really did. And so I'm very grateful for all the experiences that I had and that life change. And I'd like to think that besides the obvious physicality, you know, I mean, I was naked in it, so obviously I had to look good naked. But besides that, the first time I met him, you know, I'm sitting there. I mean, they're already filming. They were already in the middle of filming, and I walked in to meet him at his office in Pinewood, and which is a big studio in London. I was living in London at the time, and I immediately said, you know, bravo on 2001. I said, because you got it right when it comes to the fact that when people were in space, there was no sound. You know, all you could hear would be the breathing inside the, you know, you didn't hear the engines or whatever. And I said, and the reason for that was because in space, because there's no atmosphere. When there's no atmosphere, there's no possibility for sound. Now, this is something that, you know, most other films like Star Wars, for instance, get horribly wrong.
Right.
It's not accurate. And I think Stanley, being such the intellectual and an ace researcher on everything, anything that he was interested in, he researched to the nth degree. So he obviously discovered that and reflected it in his work. And so when I told him that, he was, I'd like to think, really pleased that I knew something like that. And then I explained that, you know, my father worked for Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is an offshoot of NASA, and he was a computer engineer. And so he knew I wasn't from stupid stock, you know? So I think that had something to do with it, or I'd like to think that that had something to do with it. So it was a good experience in that respect. But let's see, as for working with Stanley, it was great, and it was hard, and it was frustrating, and it was good and bad and everything in between.
I heard like so many actors we interviewed that talked about working with Stanley Kubrick, like for instance, The Shining. The actress that played the wife in that,
All right.
her name
Shelley
is
Duvall.
right.
Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall. She said that she loved Stanley Kubrick. They were friends for years after that, but said that she hated him during the filming because he pushed her to her limit, like beyond her limits, that he would make her reshoot scenes 100 times. Some of the actors would burst into tears because they had done 200 takes of a scene, and that he literally almost broke her psychologically because he was pushing her to get just the right facial expression. Was he that intense? I know that Eyes Wide Shut was one of his last films, but
no, he wasn't. However, he was still incredibly particular. And, he didn't do any yelling and screaming or anything like that.
Well, she never said that. He would just push.
He used his first AD to do the not screaming, but the first AD was definitely a bellower. I'll say that. He was a bellower. It was frustrating at times because, I mean, just doing rehearsals. I mean, there's one scene when all the girls are in this circle. I call it the ritual scene. We're all in a circle, and then you've got the guy in the middle with the incense, and all the music's going and blah, blah, blah. We rehearsed that scene for nearly a month. Just that scene. Not the peeling off from the circle, just that.
Wow.
I had, I mean, there's finally, I think they've gone down, but I had bone spurs on my knees for being on my knees for weeks on end. And I got an injury. I injured my fascia because, we were on, like 5-inch heels and having to kneel down and get back up on 5-inch heels. And I guess I wasn't strong enough, and I pulled my fascia. And, at the end of the night, all the girls would be going home, and they handed us all frozen peas to put on our knees because all of our knees were swollen. But that didn't stop him. And even though the choreographer tried to choreograph it where we weren't on our knees, that's what Stanley wanted, and that's what Stanley got. Now, following on from that, being a producer myself and actually helping to associate produce other projects, I now really understand Stanley a lot more, because the sign of a great director is somebody that no matter what puts the production first. Right. And so although, in the case of Shelley Duvall, that yes, he almost broke her, but look at the performance.
Right.
I mean, look at that. Right. So I understand. I understand now. And even though I suffered, I understand now. And so for that, I mean, he will always be one of the best filmmakers that ever lived. And I feel very fortunate that I was chosen to be in his last film. I mean, and to have that pivotal role in his last film. I mean, wow. I mean, what a, that was unbelievable luck. And I don't normally get that lucky. I've always had to work really damn hard for everything I've managed to get in my life. But that was a stroke of luck and synchronicity and great timing.
Well, Eyes Wide Shut was a great film. I was actually working in a theater when it was released. I was an usher and a projectionist when you still had to put films together instead of them coming in on Blu-ray.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. I saw it 3 times at the theater, and then it's one of those you have to see. Any of Kubrick's films, the more you watch it, the more you understand it. And the first time it was just kind of, and then after that you begin to get into
totally
it.
Totally agree. I think also the beauty of his films, and I can't figure out how he did it.
Mhm.
But the beauty of his films are that depending upon where you are in your life and what your outlook is in life, and you know what general things you're going through,
Mhm.
somehow his films are interpreted according to that.
Yeah.
And so watching the film more recently for me, the film has unlocked in a whole different way than it did years ago when it first came out, or
Yeah.
even 5 years after that. I mean, as I'm saying, it's the kind of film that you would really almost need to watch multiple times through your life to see what else that you can find from it. Because
Exactly.
there's so much else to be found from it.
Exactly. I feel that way about Clockwork Orange. I felt that way about 2001, The Shining, and Eyes Wide Shut, you know.
Even Lolita.
Yep.
Even Lolita. I mean, I just watched Lolita recently, and I'm now realizing that there's a link between Lolita and Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
Yep.
there's the whole sex trafficking, pedophilia aspect that is, you know, apparent also in Eyes Wide Shut, this kind
Mhm.
of underworld of people that are doing all of these things. I mean, in the
Yeah.
case of Lolita, it was 𝗟𝗏𝘁'𝘀 and the whole Hollywood scene that that Lolita got involved with, right?
Mhm.
I mean, besides the mainline story, but I just think
And
that's
Eyes Wide Shut,
fascinating.
it was an underground society, secret society. Again, depending on what your point of worldview is, you could see many things in that.
Yep,
You know.
you certainly could. You certainly could. And I don't think it is a conspiracy theory. I think it's real.
Mhm.
You know, and those parties, those kinds of parties, those sort of, you know, orgy parties, they're real. People do
Yeah.
that. People did that from before Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's
All through
what,
history. I
yeah,
mean, orgies
yeah,
have been part of the human
yeah,
experience, and to think that it's not going on anymore is
yeah,
just kind of naive.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is. And, you know, the other thing that was really interesting about off the back of Eyes Wide Shut, I ended up in England, because I was living in England at the time, becoming a bit of an it girl, right?
Mhm.
And so I was going to all the parties and I was swanning around Europe, and I was meeting all kinds of you know, powerful people, wealthy people, influential people, you know, big stars, celebrity, royalty, right?
Mhm.
And I'd begun to realize a lot more about their lifestyle. And that was a whole thing that he commented on as well in Eyes Wide Shut, this kind of lifestyle of those people, those elite people that are uber wealthy, that kind of run above, they run above morality and ethics and countries and laws, right?
Yeah, they're out of the
All about
reach,
that.
like a
Yep.
certain financier that was able to fly flights to and from an island many years with everyone knowing it. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Yep, exactly. I met Epstein.
Yeah.
I met Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, both in these circles. I met
Yeah.
Epstein when I was modeling in Paris in the summer. And of course he was there in the summer because that's when all the youngest girls are there.
Mhm.
Right.
And no one put, you know, and you not being in part of that ultra elite circle. I mean, you were an it girl. You were
Well,
becoming
I was
not
part
not
of the, I was kind of, let's see, how can I say? I wasn't ultra elite in the sense that, you know, I was uber wealthy or had a lot of power, but I was definitely in those circles where I was
you were
invited to
adjacent and
those.
in those circles.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was in those circles, invited to those parties, met those people. I mean, you know, yeah.
Yeah. And did you
So,
think anything fishy was going on with him particularly or her particularly?
you know, my meeting her was very fleeting. I did a like a charity show as a kind of model stroke it girl celeb in London called I think it was like the Little Black Dress charity show. And I met her just briefly, you know, just introduced like, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you, kind of thing.
Right.
With Epstein, it was different. With him, I had an agency, and my booker said, hey, do you want to go out tonight? We can go to Le Bain Douche, which is a big club in Paris. And I said, sure. And so we got he picked me up at my hotel where I was staying. And he said, oh, I just want to go to my friend's place. He's got some of our models staying there. And then, we'll see if they want to come with. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. So we go over there. And I didn't realize this until years later, but I actually met Jeffrey Epstein. And he did have a couple of young models staying there. And so, we went up to his place and just hung out for, I don't know, like 20 minutes or so while the girls decided whether they were going to come or not. They decided not to, and then we went on our way. But what was so interesting about that is the thing I remember is where the flat was, and this is how I know it's Jeffrey, where the flat was, the parameters of like, where it was in relation to Paris, and because his Paris apartment was right near the Champs-Élysées, right near the Arc de Triomphe, sorry. And where it was very interesting because this street had this hedge, and then there was kind of like a grassy area, courtyard before the front door, which is kind of unusual in Paris. There's a lot of places where you have the door is right on the sidewalk on the street. And then if there is a courtyard, it's on the other side of the building, or, there's like a tunnel way before you go into a door. But it's more unusual that you'd have a hedge and then this kind of grassy area with a walkway and then the building itself. And that's where Jeffrey's apartment was. And I just remember meeting this man that was so low key, it was almost disturbing. Like so low key, like it was odd how casual he was. It's almost like a deadness there. It's hard to describe. And I just remember thinking, he's kind of attractive, but he had this really big jaw. And I thought, yeah, that's not helping him. He would have been more attractive without that big jaw. But then when I put it all together and then I looked up where his Paris apartment was, it was exactly where I remembered it. Exactly. The street, the location in relation to the Arc de Triomphe, everything. And then I also saw that the apartment wasn't heavily decorated. It looked kind of, they had a few main items in the room, and it wasn't, it didn't look like it was lived in all year by any means. Right. It was just like the bare minimum of furniture. Yeah, bare minimum furniture, no art on the walls, just bare minimum. And then, like in the model, I went in to see the models in their rooms, and it was literally just like a couple of mattresses on the floor with their crap all over the place, which is very typical for a working traveling model. And so, yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's just so weird looking back on that.
Well, tell us about your modeling. Where could we, were you in, I assume you were in print, or did you do runway? Or
I did all of it. Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Fashion, beauty, swimwear, lingerie, catwalk, you name it. Yeah. It was a great career. Lasted a long time. I feel very fortunate, but I worked hard to get there. I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A career in art, and to actually make money at it, livable money in it, like you have
to be able to make a living. Yeah.
It puts you in the top echelons just right away.
Yeah, I suppose it does. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it does. I mean, like I said, I feel lucky in that respect, but especially in modeling, I worked my butt off to get there. Yeah, absolutely. I really did. Yeah. But it's really interesting about the whole Epstein thing, the society of the uber wealthy that also joins up with the uber powerful, the politically powerful. Mm-hmm. And I think in Fear Frequency, we touch on that as well. We touch on that kind of, this kind of society that are kind of running the levers of power. And it's this kind of, I mean, sure, we see people that are, representatives of it, the globalists or whatever. But, when you're on the outside of things, our mind can run rampant as to what they really get up to, what really, that's like with Epstein, you think, what really went on in Epstein's island and what went on in that plane. And, you know, we think about all those things, or what goes on in the White House, like right now, or during the Clinton era, or during the Obama era. What goes on there?
Yeah.
And we all think about, you know, what they're doing, what they're up to, what they're trying to do. And so I think the film kind of touches on a little bit of that paranoia. You know, are they watching us? How are they watching us? You know?
Yeah. Well, being that this is a combination true crime horror film channel, I have to ask, are there any current true crime cases you're watching closely right now?
You know what I find the most interesting right now is there have been 2 accidents that have happened in Los Angeles, which I'm finding very disturbing. One was a nurse that drove 90 miles an hour through a busy intersection and ended up killing, I think, 6 or 7 people. And another one was the actress 𝗟𝗲𝘁'𝘀, who again was driving 80, 90 miles an hour into a residential district and then hit a building going that fast. And, you know, sadly, I mean, she's in a coma now. But the conspiracy theory in me is kind of in me is fascinated by this, in a horribly fascinated, because you think, what would drive a person? What is going on in people that they would do something like that? It's very odd. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Those 2 accidents, had you heard about those?
I had heard about 𝗟𝗲𝘁'𝘀. I had not heard about the nurse. I'll have to look that up.
I mean, it's just freaky. It's like, I don't know what's going on with people doing these things lately. And the accidents in this country are ramping up. If you were to talk to, or, you know, look into statistics of car accidents, they're way up. So what's going on there? So if you were going to say, what true crime am I into? I'm looking at that. I'm thinking, why are the accidents so far up? You know, why are people dropping dead at the wheel? You know, I mean, I've got other situations where, I don't want to give too much away. Someone I know who ended up getting something that was experimental, can't say more than that, has been diagnosed with dissociative disorder. And I'm just wondering if there's some sort of link there. Or is all of this, I mean, you know, you could even say, if you're going to go full conspiracy theory, you know, with the accidents and people doing strange behavior, do we have a little bit of 𝗟𝗏𝘁'𝘀 going on here? You know?
I mean, I get that. Is the government, you know, conspiracy theorists, is the government slipping us something? Maybe in the middle of the road, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's a combination of drugs and just high amounts of psychological stress, and people are just snapping.
Yep.
And then, of course, on the other side, you have, it's not anything, it's just crazy people being crazy people.
I mean, the pragmatic side of me is going to say, you know, let's take all of these conspiracy theories and, you know, the whole thing with 5G and EMF and all of this stuff, you know, and the experimental thingamabobs. Let's just take all of that and just kind of, you know, keep it in our front pocket and just pull it out when something else occurs and think, is there a correlation here? What's going on with that, you know? Because we do need to keep our heads with all the things that are going on in the world. But I just think, you know, I don't think we should be ruling out some of the conspiracy theories that are flying around. And that's why I like our film Fear Frequency too, because it explores those things. It explores what could be going on, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's probably going to be one of those films that you can watch it now in 2022 and then watch it again in 2035 and probably have different, totally different take on it, or maybe the same take, who
you know
knows?
what? I hope so. I hope that that our film ends up becoming a cult hit. I really do.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if it did. Money aside. I mean, I didn't do it for the money.
No.
I haven't made any money at it yet. So, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it's the first thing I've done without being paid up front.
Is it?
So I believed in it,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it, are y'all self-distributing it, or did you find a distributor?
We did. We found a distributor. This is freaky. I mean, we got really lucky here. Once we finished it, we then sent our first lot out to, I think it was 6 or 7 distributors. Got one right away. I mean,
Awesome.
like within a week, which is almost unprecedented, especially for an indie film.
Mhm.
I mean, so
I
we
know.
got very lucky there, and they're a great distributor, Juno Films. Yeah.
I've done a couple of indie horrors myself. Like you, haven't made any money at them. I enjoyed doing them, but
Yeah.
One was self-distributed by the director, producer, writer, and the other was actually got a small distributor. So that one's the most current one. So we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah. I mean, it is really all down to people like you and your viewers. So, to your viewers, I would say, please go see it. I promise it's compelling, and you won't feel that you've wasted your time.
No, I'm looking forward to it. It's available right here on YouTube for a very nominal rental fee. It's also on Amazon.
And it's also on Google Play.
Google Play.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So definitely go check it out for your frequency. Also, if you're in the mood, go back and check out Eyes Wide Shut for Julianne's very great performance there. She also has I'll link her website down below. She also has a filmography of television shows and other things that she's been in. So go check out her work. She's a great actress, and I'm so grateful that you came on.
Yeah, my art and I think my music is on there too. So you've got links to, to look at a few things and hear a few things and whatever. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'll definitely have you back on. Maybe we'll just come on at some point and have a panel on something. I usually do all movie October. So maybe we'll come on and discuss our favorite horror films or something.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be so fantastic. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and to talk about my film. And yeah, please go see it. And if you guys like it out there and you want to give us a review, that would be super great. Reviews are really, we are so grateful for any reviews that we receive. So,
well, I'm going to do one here on the channel as a second part to this video, and then I will be happy to go do a review for it on Google or
yes, please. Thank you. Yes, that would be fantastic.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today, and I'll be back soon with another true crime or movie review. And until next time, keep doing crime.